what is this that's trying to come through? So I was like, let me pull some cards. So the first two cards that I pulled the courage card and the taking risks card. Okay. And I knew that those were the cards that I was, quote unquote, supposed to pull, but they didn't feel the way that they were supposed to. I was like, I don't feel like this is it. So then I pulled two more cards, one from the same deck and then one from a Rebecca Campbell deck. And one is the Lemuria card, which is creating heaven on earth. It's happening. And the other one is the Wonders card. And I was like, that's it. That's the shift, which is begin again literally means that it can be that easy, that you can have this heaven on earth, that you can be in a state of wonder about your life, that there is a wonderful filled life that exists for you. And that even the idea of like, okay, we're going to take risks and like, I'm going to have real courage now. And like, we put on all this armor to be ourselves. And it's like, that's the whole message of like, no, you actually like right now, there are times for courage and taking risks and all of those things. But I feel like, especially for this in between, for like what we're experiencing right now, like that's not what we need. Like what you need is simply you. So even that idea of like messaging of like, I don't know how to like describe to people what I do, or I don't, it's like, I don't know what things I should be saying yes to and which things I should be saying no to. And I would argue like, yes, you absolutely do. It's the fear that is getting in the water that's creating that sense of like, oh, maybe I don't know. Maybe there are risks I need to take. Maybe there's like more courage that needs to be there. And in the reality, it's like, no, really all we need is just you. Like, it's really okay to begin again, to begin with this sense of ease and alignment and really knowing, yeah, that it's just so much easier. Like, I think all of us, and this is definitely like for sure a message like for me and all of this, which is like, and this is the Hollywood toxic bullshit of it all, right? Of like, oh, you can do that. Can you also do this? Can you also do that? Can you also stand on your head? Can you also stand on your head and also make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at the same time? But don't eat it because it'll make you fat. Like all of these, that is the world one of the worlds that I've operated in for so long that I still have that hashtag old paradigm, that way of being of like, oh, you have to be doing everything at once to be valid. And that may work for some people. But I think if you're listening to this, you and I are not those people. That's not the journey that we're on. And so it's almost like, I don't ever say, I don't like this when people are like, oh, it's a test from the universe. I always say like, it's not a test. You're just aware now that you would make a different choice. So it's not a test, it's evolution, right? You notice now like, oh, I used to say yes to that thing, or I would have gone on a third date with that person, or like all of these things as you begin to notice. It's not like, oh, I'm being tested now. It's you've evolved and you to the place where you know that you could make a different choice. And so that's so much of where we are right now, which is like that fear, or like I think that struggle that we're feeling right now, which is that in between. And it makes sense. We're in this Mercury retrograde, in this eclipse season. And we're also very, very early into the astrological new year. I mean, it's April 5th. So we are very, very, we're Bambi in this situation. And so this new version of yourself that you see, these new things that you're wanting to materialize, feel as though it is confusing or fearful, or we don't know how we're going to get there. But I'm just want to offer you of like, you absolutely do know, but when you're doing too many things at once, there's not space to be able to accurately discern what is next or what is for you. Otherwise, we're going to go back to that old paradigm, to that old conditioning where you're just going to say yes to everything. And I'm not meaning this literally. I'm going to trust that you can read between the lines of like, when you're still holding on to too many things, or like in my, for me of being like, oh, but I do this and I also do this and I also do that. It's like, you can still keep doing all of those things. We're not saying that you're a completely new, different person. So if you're like, oh, I was about to launch like a new thing or whatever, like that's fine. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm simply saying that the very big, like, it almost feels like an explosion, like there, and not in a bad way, but there's this like all of these things that you've been wanting to materialize, all these things that you have been wanting to like shift in your life are coming, and you're going to get blown the fuck up if you're not ready. Meaning, and I know that sounds like that's like a threat. It's not that. Take it or leave it. But meaning, like, at least for me, that was what I was really hearing of like, okay, set this down, set this down. It's like if, if you see somebody in like I don't know, a line at like Marshall's or Bloomingdale's or something, and they've got like too many things in their hand, you're like, oh, can I help you? Or if you're going up to Trader Joe's and you're trying to hold the milk and all these other things, they're like, oh, you can set that down here, while you wait. That's how it feels. Of like, if you have too much shit in the can, if you are holding on to too much, if you're struggling to how to describe yourself or know yourself or all of these things, like when that explosion happens, you are not going to be ready. And that doesn't mean that like you're not going to get the thing. Again, that's not a warning or like a threat. It's just simply like true. And I think for those of us listening and those of us moving through this work, we are ready to do it in the way that services us. And so begin again. This is the time where like we really know ourselves in such a unique and beautiful way now, that this idea of like beginning again, doing less, say the thing, whatever it is, like be still, is offering that to you. So when this explosion happens and when all these things come through, you're able to navigate it because you've just gotten so used to trusting that everybody else gets their due. Everybody else gets that thing. And you've gotten so comfortable with not being in that space that that's also a lot of what, like, of the filling up. It's almost that it wasn't so much like, oh, look at all of these things you could do, or like all of these talents you have, which is true. And like talents, options, like maybe you're dating a lot of people right now and it feels like a lot of people are showing up. Like, I think all of these things, again, this is an energy, so it's transferable to whatever the thing is that you're experiencing. So I don't want you to get caught up in like the, semantics of it. But holding on to that many things, presenting that many things, being okay, being perfect, looking perfect, everything fits me perfect, like any of that has just been a way to protect yourself. And I feel like the grand mother, Gaia, the universe, Christ consciousness, again, however you describe it, but there's this really beautiful, just like you're being held. And so allow yourself to be. That's the creating heaven on earth. That's the it all works out. That's the you are enough. You are safe now. Right here, right now, whole and complete.